Ethan thought he was being careful, but what he did not realize was that I already knew everything. One of his colleagues, repulsed by what was happening, had come forward and told me the truth. Armed with that knowledge, I carefully planned my next steps, making sure to prepare myself both mentally and emotionally. Fortunately, I had time to calm my emotions and turn my anger into something more productive: strategy. Tonight was the night. Everything was set to unfold after dinner. "Is it happening tonight, Rachel?" my closest confidant, Lisa, asked, her voice eager with anticipation. "Yes, it is time," I replied firmly. "I will wait until after dinner, hand him a beer, and then let you know how it goes. Just be ready. Stay strong," Lisa advised. "He will not take this easily, but you have to stand your ground." "I will," I assured her. "We have been through this. He really does not have much of a choice. If he truly loves me, he will accept that this is something I need for my happiness." "Exactly," Lisa agreed with conviction. "Brace yourself for him to resist, to argue, maybe even to yell. But if you remain calm and firm, he will come around. He needs to understand that you are in control now." "That is the plan," I said confidently. "And as far as he is concerned, this is only temporary. Once he accepts it, he might even start to appreciate it." Lisa's tone turned skeptical. "Are you certain he will go along with this? Ethan can be incredibly stubborn." "Trust me, Lisa. Ethan loves me more than anything. Yes, he will be upset at first, but deep down, he loves me enough to do whatever it takes to make me happy. Even this," Lisa sighed, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "I'm speaking from what I have learned the hard way. It took me 2 failed marriages to figure this out, but my third husband? Proof that it works. You have met him. He is completely devoted now. He even stands by quietly when I am with someone else and handles everything afterward." I paused, slightly amazed. "Wow." "Believe me," she continued, "give it a month. Ethan will fall in line just like mine did. Not only will you secure your marriage, but you will finally have the freedom you deserve." That evening, I went home and cooked Ethan's favorite meal. When he walked through the door, he greeted me with his usual warmth, pressing a kiss to my cheek and saying, "I love you." Even though I had played this moment over and over in my head, I could not shake my nerves. This was going to be a defining moment in our marriage. But I knew deep down it was worth it. Lisa had been telling me about her relationship philosophy for months, and I had seen the way it had transformed her marriage. Her husband seemed genuinely happy. I believe Ethan would come to appreciate it too. Dinner was like any other night. Easy conversation, shared laughter, the comfort of routine. We talked about our day, the news, little things that made the world feel normal. Afterward, I insisted that Ethan relax with a beer while I cleaned up. He offered to help, but I waved him off, telling him it was no trouble at all. With the dishes done and the kitchen spotless, I poured myself a glass of wine and took a deep breath. It was time. I found Ethan in the living room, flipping through the newspaper. He glanced up and smiled. "Everything all right, sweetheart?" I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Ethan, we need to talk." He set the paper aside, his expression curious but calm. "Of course. What is on your mind?" I steadied myself. "This might be hard for you to accept at first, but it is something I really need. And I promise, it is only temporary." His brows drew together slightly, but he nodded. "All right. If it is that important to you, I will do my best to understand." "What is it?" So far, his reaction was measured, which gave me the confidence to keep going. "Ethan, we have talked about having children, and I am almost ready. But before we take that step, there is something I need to do for myself." "That is fine," he said, nodding again. "What do you need?" I hesitated for just a moment, then forced myself forward. "I need to explore certain things before I fully settle into motherhood. It is just for a little while, and after that, I will be the best wife and mother you could ever ask for." To my surprise, he remained composed. "I suppose that is reasonable. How do you plan to go about it?" I exhaled slowly. "I will be seeing other men for a short period of time," I admitted. "It is not about love. It is just something physical. You are the one I love, and that will never change. But this is something I need to do in order to be sure I am ready for the next phase of our lives." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he did not raise his voice. "Rachel, It sounds like you have already made up your mind, so there is no point in me arguing. I will just say this. I do not agree with it, but I will not stop you. That night, I noticed Ethan packing up his things from our bedroom. He was quiet about it, methodical. I watched as he carefully placed his belongings into boxes rather than just carrying them to the spare room in armfuls. When I asked why, he said it would make things easier, allowing him to sort through what he wanted to keep and what was unnecessary. It made sense, but I did not dwell on it. My focus was elsewhere. At one point, as I was getting ready, he glanced at me and, with a voice that carried both resignation and admiration, said, "You look beautiful tonight." I smiled, feeling the shift in control settle comfortably around me. Thank you, Ethan. What happened next, I knew, would determine the course of everything. And I was ready for it. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the garter belt and stockings, sliding on my sleek black heels. I had put on the little red cocktail dress, the same one I had bought for our 5th anniversary, the only other time I had worn it. I knew I looked incredible. Ethan, however, barely reacted. He sat there, expression unreadable, as I grabbed my clutch and made my way toward the door. "I will be out for the night," I mentioned casually. "Probably back around 1, but I might not be alone, so do not wait up." His response was calm, almost indifferent. "Do not worry about me. By the time you return, I will be gone." I glanced back to see him closing up the last box, sealing it with an air of finality. The ease with which he accepted it unsettled me for a moment, but I pushed the thought aside. Tonight was about enjoying myself, not dwelling on his reaction. At the club, I quickly found Lisa and met up with Sean and Eric, 2 guys from Lisa's office. They were good-looking, charming, and rumored to be well-equipped in more ways than one. Lisa and the other girls had spoken about them often, and I had to admit, the idea of seeing what all the fuss was about intrigued me. As we sipped our drinks, Lisa brought up Ethan's move to the spare bedroom. "He is actually moving out," I corrected. "He said he would be gone before I got back." Sean raised an eyebrow. "He actually said that?" "Yes," I confirmed, replaying his words in my mind. Everyone at the table burst into laughter. Eric smirked and joked. I was hoping we could find a way to include Ethan in our plans. Maybe with some persuasion? I playfully suggested we could explore that idea later, and the conversation drifted back to flirtation and fun. The night unfolded effortlessly. We danced, we laughed, we drank. During the slower songs, Sean and Eric took turns holding me close, their hands lingering on my back and hips a little longer than necessary. It felt good. At one point, Lisa and I ducked into the restroom for a quick strategy session. A game of rock, paper, scissors decided our partners for the night. Sean would be mine, while Lisa took Eric. Back at my house, the place was dark. I assumed Ethan had already gone to bed, and I felt relieved. No audience necessary. I led Sean down the hall to my bedroom, noticing immediately that Ethan's belongings were gone. I briefly considered acknowledging Ethan's cooperation, perhaps a small reward, a thank you, but the thought vanished as quickly as it arrived. There were more pressing matters at hand. Sean and I wasted no time. He requested that I leave on the garter belt and stockings, and I happily obliged. My thong had disappeared at some point earlier in the night. Either Sean or Eric had it, but it did not matter. I could always replace it. For the next 2 hours, we lost ourselves in the moment, moving together seamlessly, switching positions to keep things exciting. By the end, we were both exhausted but completely satisfied. A shared shower rounded out the night before we collapsed into bed. The next morning, after another heated round in the shower, Sean mentioned he needed to head home, to his wife and kids. I threw on a robe and made my way to the kitchen, expecting the usual pot of coffee Ethan always made in the morning. But there was none. It was already past 9, and Ethan was normally up by now. I frowned, making a mental note to talk to him about it later. Would it really kill him to brew coffee and make breakfast, especially after the night I had? Whatever small moment of gratitude I had considered for his compliance completely vanished. After finishing a bagel, I took a long, hot shower to ease my sore muscles. With no real plans for the day, I opted for comfort, loose shorts, an old t-shirt, and simple underwear. Just as I finished tying my hair into a ponytail, my phone rang. "Hey, girlfriend," Lisa greeted cheerfully. "Hey, you," I replied, still groggy. "So, How was Sean last night? She asked, her voice dripping with curiosity. Exactly what I expected. Amazing, I said with a satisfied grin. But speaking of men, I have not seen Ethan yet this morning. He is still asleep, and I am annoyed that he did not make me coffee or breakfast. Lisa laughed. Make sure he knows how disappointed you are. And remember, stay firm with him, but reward him when he does things right. That way he stays motivated to do what you want. Good point, I agreed. Actually, I'm starting to get irritated. Hold on. I'm going to wake him up. I stormed down the hall, knocking firmly on the spare bedroom door. Ethan, I called. No response. I knocked louder. Ethan, wake up. Silence. Annoyed, I twisted the doorknob and pushed the door open. Then, my heart stopped. Oh no, I gasped. Lisa's voice came through the phone. What is wrong? He is not here, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My stomach twisted as I scanned the empty room. His clothes gone. His tools gone. The realization hit like a freight train. Ethan had not moved into the spare bedroom. He had moved out of the house completely. Lisa, I said breathlessly, he is gone. He really left? Lisa sighed on the other end. Calm down. Do not call him. Let him reach out to you first. Trust me, he is just throwing a tantrum. Give it a couple of days, and he will come crawling back. This actually works in your favor. Now, you get to punish him and make him beg to come back. I swallowed hard, still staring at the empty closet, the blank walls where his things had once been. Are you sure about that? I asked, doubt creeping into my voice. Of course I am sure, Lisa said, her tone unwavering. Look at everything you have done so far. This is just another step. But as I stood there, staring at the undeniable proof that Ethan was truly gone, I was no longer certain of anything. I sighed, conceding for the moment. I have to admit, you have been right so far. Lisa smirked. Of course I have. Oh, and Sean wants to meet you in the supply closet for an hour on Monday. Think we can pull that off? Absolutely, she assured me. Half the women here are already doing it. It is so common I have had to start scheduling it. Do not worry, I will send you a calendar invite. Just mark it as an off-site meeting or something. The boss never checks the supply closet, and anyone who needs anything from there knows to come to me first. We chatted a bit longer before ending the call, but a nagging feeling remained about Ethan's departure. Despite everything, I genuinely loved him. I had imagined growing old with him, spending our lives together. Lisa's version of the so-called feminine lifestyle sounded thrilling. Freedom to explore other men while keeping Ethan as a devoted, submissive husband. I thought about the long-term picture. Maybe one day I could bring Ethan back, on my terms. Perhaps if he agreed to certain conditions like accepting my relationships with other men, I would consider allowing him back into my life. It would be a negotiation, a give-and-take situation. But that was something for the future. He did not need to know yet that this was all part of a bigger plan. Shrugging off my thoughts, I focused on recovering from the night before and preparing for the long work week ahead. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner, poured a glass of wine, and went to bed early. A week later, there was still no word from Ethan. Lisa was not surprised. She reassured me that his silence was actually to my advantage. The longer he stayed away, the more leverage I would have when it came time for his return. She insisted that I could set as many conditions as I wanted once he finally broke and came crawling back. Meanwhile, my work week had become a whirlwind of excitement. The supply closet became a playground, and Sean, Eric, and even a few new faces kept things interesting. On Friday morning, we were gathered around the coffee machine, Lisa, Sean, Eric, and I, joking and laughing as usual. Then, out of nowhere, a well-dressed woman approached us. Are you Rachel Adams, Lisa Morgan, Sean Bennett, and Eric Turner? She asked, her gaze sweeping across us. We exchanged glances before nodding. She handed each of us an envelope, then swiftly snapped a photo of us with a small digital camera. You have been served, she said sweetly before turning toward the boss's office. Confused, I called after her. Wait, what is this about? She paused and with a syrupy southern accent replied, Oh, it is just a little joke. Someone paid me to hand these out. Do not worry about it. She strode into the boss's office without knocking, stayed for less than a minute, and then exited the building as cheerfully as she had arrived. Curiosity turned to dread as we opened our envelopes. Divorce papers. The reason? Spousal infidelity. I felt frozen, unable to process the shock. Sean and Eric's phones rang almost immediately, furious voices on the other end. Their wives. I watched as both men paled, whispering about their wives, throwing out their belongings, and threatening to file for full custody of their kids. Before we could recover from the initial blow, our boss's angry voice thundered from his office. Adams, Morgan, Bennett, Turner, in my office. Now! Heads down, we shuffled inside, the door slamming behind us. The tension in the air was suffocating as he glared at us, waving a manila envelope in the air. What the hell were you thinking? He spat. This is beyond bad. Do you even understand the situation you have put this company in? None of us dared to speak. The company is facing a lawsuit, he continued, his voice thick with disgust. Do you have any idea how serious this is? It seems some of you thought the supply closet was your own personal playground. And Lisa, you have essentially turned it into a damn brothel. My stomach dropped as he slammed the envelope onto his desk. Let me be perfectly clear, he said, his tone like ice. There is a court order preventing me from firing you all until this case is resolved. But do not think for a second that means you are off the hook. His eyes burned with contempt. Now, get out of my office. We left without a word, the weight of his anger heavy on our shoulders. My job, once a safe haven, had now become a daily battle for survival. When I finally had a moment to examine the divorce papers in private, my shock deepened. The evidence against me was overwhelming. Photos, videos, audio recordings, even notarized witness statements. I could not believe how thoroughly Ethan had planned this. Then, as if things could not get any worse, an email from the boss hit the entire company inbox. New workplace policies effective immediately. Asterisk mandatory moral conduct training for all employees. Asterisk security monitoring in secluded areas. Asterisk strict rules for inter-employee interactions. Asterisk the supply closet, officially off-limits unless accompanied by a security escort. Moments later, my inbox flooded with angry emails from coworkers, furious over the new restrictions, placing the blame squarely on me, Lisa, and the others. The resentment followed me everywhere I went. Even the bar, where Lisa, Sean, and Eric met me after work, was filled with hostile stares and hushed whispers. Why do you think Ethan included that court order? I asked, frustrated. Sean shrugged. He is not just trying to minimize damage, he is trying to maximize it. He wants you to feel the full impact of what happened. But why? I asked, still stunned by how strategic Ethan had been. Sean let out a bitter laugh. It is about money. If you lose your job or your income, he might have to pay alimony. But if you stay employed, the judge is less likely to award you anything. Eric nodded. Exactly. You quitting would be the worst thing for him. If you lose your job because of this, it might actually work in your favor when it comes to the divorce. Lisa frowned. So, you are saying we should all just hold on until the divorce is finalized? Absolutely, Eric said. If all of us got fired right after the divorce, there would be no alimony, no severance, nothing. That is probably exactly what Ethan wants. Sean shook his head. If it comes to that, I would rather just resign on Monday. Eric chuckled darkly. And that, my friend, is why you are not thinking this through. If you resign voluntarily, especially right after getting served divorce papers, the judge might see it as manipulation. It could actually backfire. The consensus was clear: stay employed, keep our heads down, and survive until the divorce was finalized. But as I sat there, nursing my drink, I realized something chilling. Ethan had not just left. He had planned this. He had been 5 steps ahead the entire time. And now I was the one left picking up the pieces. Sean turned to me, his expression clouded with concern. Rachel, what about you and me? Our situations are worse. We have kids involved. Alimony and child support are not just about fairness. They are calculated based on income at the time of the divorce. If we lose our jobs, things could get even messier. The weight of his words hit me hard. Everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. For the first time, I seriously considered reaching out to Ethan to try and fix things. No matter what happened with my friends, the thought of losing my husband was unbearable. A moment of clarity struck me like lightning. Had I really been willing to throw away my marriage for something so temporary? If there was any chance of salvaging my relationship, I needed to make Ethan my priority, not my friendships. I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. Blocked. Frustrated, I turned to Lisa and explained the situation. She handed me her phone. The same message came through. Try Eric's phone, Lisa suggested. I hesitated, considering what it would look like for Ethan to receive a call from Eric. I do not know if that is a good idea, I admitted. It was becoming painfully clear. Ethan had blocked every possible way I could reach him. Home, work, even our mutual friends. A growing sense of panic took hold. Determined to find him, I decided to search in person. The urgency of fixing things outweighed any embarrassment or social expectations. Just that morning, I had been convinced Ethan would come crawling back to me. Now, the roles had reversed. I scrolled through my contacts, hoping someone would know where he was. The few mutual friends who still talked to me had no idea. The ones who wanted nothing to do with me clearly knew something, but refused to share. When I asked if they would at least pass along a message, I was met with mocking laughter. By the time I finished my last call and downed my fourth drink, I felt utterly defeated. Sean, thinking he had come up with some brilliant idea, suggested, "Hey, since our lives are already falling apart, why do we not all go to Rachel's and spend the night as a group? We have already crossed that line. Why not go further?" I stared at him, dumbfounded. Maybe it was the alcohol talking, but his logic was absurd. "No," I said firmly, my tone polite but absolute. "I still have a shred of hope for Ethan and me. That would destroy it completely." I glanced at Lisa. "Why do you not take them home instead?" Determined to locate Ethan, I spent my weekend driving through motel parking lots, searching for his truck. I circled his friends' neighborhoods at random times, hoping to spot it. At one point, I even tried following his best friend, praying he would lead me to Ethan. Nothing. By Monday morning, I was desperate. I parked across the street from Ethan's workplace, watching employees file in. But Ethan never showed. Even though I was already late for work, I stayed another hour, just in case. Still nothing. "Screw it," I muttered, deciding to go inside. My boss already hated me, but I figured they could not fire me before the settlement was finalized. At the reception desk, I asked about Ethan. "He is on leave for 2 weeks," the receptionist informed me. My heart sank. The boss shot me a furious look when I arrived at my own desk 2 hours late, but I barely noticed. All my usual options for contacting Ethan, phones, friends, even his workplace, were blocked. I had no way to reach him. Then, an idea struck me. Email. Ethan always checked his email. It was my last hope. I took a deep breath and started typing. Subject, please read this. Ethan, I know I have messed up, and there is no excuse for my actions. I have been selfish, foolish, and blind to the consequences of my choices. I do not blame Lisa or anyone else. This was my decision, and I own it. I realize now how much I have hurt you, and I hate myself for it. You were nothing but good to me, and I betrayed you. Despite everything, I still love you completely. I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I am begging for it. I will do anything to fix this, to come back to you. If you need proof, name it, I will do it. I know I have lost your trust, and I will work every day to earn it back. Please, Ethan, do not give up on us. I am ready to surrender everything to make things right. I need you. I need us. Rachel. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding. I could only hope Ethan would read it before blocking me there, too. As part of my plea, I mentioned that I had taken the first step toward proving myself. I had gone to the doctor for an STD test, and the results would be ready in a couple of days. I asked where I should send them, promising to forward them immediately. Ethan, I added, no matter what happens, you are the best person I have ever known. You have never intentionally hurt me, and even though I probably deserve it, I accept whatever consequences you decide. I'm not asking you to forget or even trust me again. Not yet. I just want a chance to prove myself, to belong to you again, on your terms. If that means agreeing to a divorce, or even watching you with other women, I will accept it. I pray it does not come to that, but I know it is not my decision. I betrayed you, and I understand that you may want to even the score. To my surprise, Ethan did not block my email. Even more shocking, he read it. But he made one thing clear. He was not about to take my words at face value. I had already broken the biggest promise I had ever made, the vow to leave everyone else behind for him. If I could betray that, why would he believe anything new I had to say? The only way to prove myself was through action, one step at a time. 2 years later, a lot has changed. Sean and Eric faced long, messy divorces. All 4 of us were fired the day after the lawsuit against our company was settled. Sean and Eric eventually found lower-paying jobs and moved into a cramped apartment in a rough neighborhood. Their ex-wives cut off contact, and their kids turned against them. Both women have since remarried and seem happier now. As for me, I faced my own reckoning. Ethan and I rebuilt our relationship on his terms. It was not easy. The first 6 months were grueling, full of painful conversations and moments of doubt. But slowly, he let me back in. Even now, he tests me in ways I could never have imagined. He needed to see if I truly meant what I said, that I would honor my commitment to him, no matter how difficult. Losing everything made me realize what truly mattered. I had gotten so caught up in Lisa's version of marriage that I had lost sight of what I already had, a husband who loved me unconditionally, who had only ever wanted me to love him in return. And now I do, not because I have to, because I choose to.